Hey there, baseball fans. Welcome back to another edition of the Prep Baseball North Carolina podcast. I'm Brandon Hall, the Mid-Atlantic Director of Scouting, overseeing North Carolina. With me, I got Patrick Johnson, Zach Borowski. Gentlemen, another big week of seeing athletes across the state. Two great events, one in the Triangle, one in the mountains. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good. Good. You got a, good group of guys. It was fun to see. It was, good to be in the Triangle because that's home to me. So it was nice to be able to stay home for once at one of our events.
Patrick, we got laid back Zach today.
Yeah, we do. It's different. I like it.
I'm tired from South Carolina's day still. I'm still tired from the that working in South Carolina got me.
Yeah, so there is some crossover. And one of the things I think people don't always realize is how interconnected we are with other regions. And so Sammy Esposito is our director in South Carolina and does a great job. And he does such a good job. I've been able to be somewhat hands-off down there in terms of, oversight and being right there with every event they run. But you were able to get down there and see some talent there. And I know we had some South Carolina guys up at some of our North Carolina events. So, that crossover is always good. It's always good to kind of cross-check one another.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I mean, it's a different, same company, but different ways. And it's always, fun to see different names. Like, for me, I always try and trade a hat for the coolest hat that somebody has, South Carolina style. It's just fun. Getting to see different players. So you're putting your eyes on somebody might have seen 10 times, and I've only seen you for 30 seconds. And so it kind of gives you a perspective of, for your own guys, just kind of where everybody else is around the area. And then, for them, it gives you a chance to give Sammy a good chance to see a better view from a different perspective.
Well, let's head back to what we were taking care of this week. And we had two great events. One venue we've been in a lot, and I think it's our third or fourth or fifth year in a row we've been there. One venue that's brand new, just opened, first time in it. And, I think people are still kind of getting to learn about the venue. So we'll start with the Triangle. We'll start with Zach. You were there. The Triangle Preseason ID hosted at USA Baseball's national team indoor training complex. The word indoor is in their name, so we use that. But it was cold. I think we showed up and it was 23 degrees as we were unloading. And then when you walk in the facility, there's walls around it, but the second and third levels of what would be a 3-story type building are open air. So initial impressions walking in, was that your first time seeing it, Zach?
Yeah, I saw it get built because I was doing PBR tournaments as it was finishing up being built. And then, it's phenomenal place. You can't beat the surface and how it can be set up and how the cages can move. It's just chilly. I think, when we got there, it was 36, 37. It got up to about 47 or 48 when we got done. So by the end of the day, it had warmed up pretty nicely. But overall, I thought it was a great place. And you can do a lot in there. It had a full infield. You were able to do all your throwdowns the second fully. It was just a pretty good place overall.
Yeah, it did warm up as we went, and I was excited about the talent level. A lot of younger players. We had some players traveling from some different areas of the state. But let's start going through it. It's still early. We're still just now getting all the stats up, starting to break down some of the video. Initial impressions. Give me a name that kind of clicked during the event for you, Zach.
I'll go first. Tate Nelson, right-handed pitcher from New Hanover. Lanky, projectable arm, was in the low to mid 80s. It was in the so overall I thought, his stuff is good. We saw him last year and he's kind of taking a jump up. Frame's getting better and he's got a chance to really pitch and really really get a lot of guys out in the high school season.
It's a name that we've been following. He was a guy that was kind of on our follow list for the future games. I liked him after the Preseason All-State East last year, in that role as a shortstop, just watching him move around and trying to evaluate and, ended up taking a couple other guys. But the athleticism was what always impressed me. And you watching him as he moves here, it's a pretty seamless mover. The hips have looseness, the arm has looseness, and the body's thin. There is some strength there, but he has not even begun to put on what we call man strength and man weight. So, you start projecting out where's that body going to be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the road. We have a chance to see a guy that's going to be, he's very easily 84 in the preseason. That velocity is not peaked in terms of where he's going to be for the high school season yet, but the arm works so cleanly. He's going to be a fun follow. New Hanover has a history of developing guys. That area, there's good enough talent. He's going to be pressed. He's going to have to make pitches. He's going to have to get better. And those guys have done a good job with talents like that. And then as he gets stronger, we could see a jump coming.
Yeah. I mean, he's the guy you're going to dream about for the next 2 years, wondering if it's going to be 86 to 90 or 90 to 94.
Right. What about from a two-way talent standpoint? We had several players there that did some things in terms of.
Yeah, we'll go hitter first since we got to pull up. Hayden Green, as we're talking, this is a physical kid, had the highest exit velo of the event, up to like 95. Bat speed was in the, low 70s. He's got some twitch, got some strength to him. I think as he gets his angles a little bit better, continues to work on, staying behind the ball, I think the power is really going to jump. The ball, like he swings and it kind of is loose and effortless. For him, as long as his angles improve and he can kind of stay behind the ball, I think the power potential is real for him.
It's a bigger body, and trying to figure out where that body is going to be. But he has some nimbleness in the body. You watch it swing, you watch some of the quickness he had in there, and that tends to translate. Those body types come in all sizes at this age, and trying to figure out how they're going to develop is always a kind of an interesting point in the scouting, the evolution of what we're trying to do in terms of player development for those guys as well. So, it's two unique body types we're talking about right out of the chute, but both guys you could see, using their athleticism within what they do to create, for him right there, for Hayden, the bat path is flat, gets through the ball. There's some juice off the bat. So it's a short look for us, but it was an intriguing look. It's a guy we're kind of excited to get back to and see this spring. So if you've got one more for us, Zach,
we'll do the two-way guy. I got a young guy, 2028, Tyler Sharp. Was upper 70s, might have bumped close to 80 on the mound. Hitting was in the low 90s. He was kind of the body type that's in the middle. Like he's already kind of physical. He hit the ball really well. Bat speed's already there. Hand speed's pretty good. Exit velo low. And he's a 28. So he's a physical 28, and you're kind of excited about him. Because he's already got a frame that's going to work, and now you're just kind of excited to see where the frame and tools go.
Yeah, of the 28s, and we had some 29s and 30s there with the Rising Stars. Very impressed with the group that was there and how they handled themselves, because the environment is a little different. I mean, it was cold when we walked in. It warmed up throughout the day. Thought the day ended up being actually pretty pleasant as we're going through it. But we're trying to press through it because with USA Baseball, they have some time constraints in that building. We had somebody in right behind us. We had to be on time. We had to move. And so between me and you, we're pressing the gas a little bit, trying to get these guys to move. And I thought the younger players, the event especially, handled that very well. A lot of them first time at the event, a lot of stuff being thrown at them, a lot of things they're being asked to do. And, they just got into the positions and performed. Tyler was one of those guys that when it was his turn to go, there was relaxation and there was an execution to his game that was good to see. And, ideally that translates into what he's doing at the high school level. So all that information on the Triangle ID will continue to pump out over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to have a bunch of social media stuff coming out, a lot of information. Their videos will post here in the next, 7 to 10 days. Our video guys are doing a great job turning around the Charlotte ID, the Wilmington ID. Those videos are already up, starting to get a ton of hits on those. So, we're rocking and rolling already into the preseason. Haven't even gotten to our preseason All-States yet. But as we turn from Saturday to Sunday, I'm on the road. I get out of the Triangle, get back to Charlotte, get a night's sleep, and then we head up to Maiden, North Carolina, home of Patrick Johnson, right down the road. Home game, Patrick. How was it?
It was nice. Yeah, Athletes Lab, man, they got a great facility. Everything around there is great. Fun fact, they're putting in 2 golf simulators. Hope to try those out maybe next year when we go by. But no, great place. The event went well. A lot of talent there. It was a good event. Ran well. Yeah.
So the guys at Athletes Lab, former college coaches, I've known them forever, being on the road and trying to track players and actually recruit against one another, and trying to figure out if they were good guys or bad guys, and because we're all always seem going after the same player. When they opened that facility, and I want to say they're from Maiden, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but they kind of went back home and they opened a facility. And the idea behind the facility was, we're going to put something here that's going to allow baseball players to develop. And systematically over the last 3, 4, 5 years, you're seeing that group, the athletes lab, A-lab, those teams have gotten better and better and better. Their athletes have gotten better and better and better. One of the guys that we tracked last year, Patrick saw him in the high school season. He was at our pro case, and he's now foregone his senior year. He's at Ford. He's now going to possibly be the Friday night guy at East Carolina. We'll see. And the name, it's been a long week. The name slipped.
Sean Jenkins.
Yeah. So Sean was really good at our pro case. I mean, really good. And so he was a guy we're going to go back in and track, but we have a whole nother year. We had the big summer coming up and kind of tracking through that. Patrick pops in on him, and I remember getting the text. He's throwing it. I can't say what you said. He's throwing it hard. I'm checking my gun. And so I'm like, I don't know what that means. So I think I called you. I was like, what do you mean you're checking your gun? I go, well, I'm getting 4s and 5s. And it was okay.
It was first game of the year. It was freezing.
It was like 35.
Outside. It was freezing, and he didn't have one under 94 the first 10 pitches. It was impressive. That's why I called you. Like, hey, is this where this is supposed to be at? I mean, this early in the year, this cold, he hasn't went under 94 his first 10 pitches. It was good.
Well, he's one of those guys too that the plan they had at A-Lab, and there are a lot of the organizations we work with, a lot of the organizations we have really good relationship with are this similar way, where they're not going to be out front saying, look what we did, look how good we are, look at all these things that we've done, but Sean took the fall off the prior year, and he put on a bunch of, you see him here, he's a lot more physical than he was that previous summer. Now all of a sudden he's moving down the mound more efficiently. The arm's on time. The direction's good. There was always talent. He wasn't a hideout guy, but he went from fringy prospect to elite level talent. And East Carolina basically stepped in and goes, we're either going to get him right now. He's going to skip a senior year. We're probably not going to get him. And so now he shows up on campus, and I haven't talked to Cliff and those guys, but I've heard rumblings that he's in the mix, and good for him. Really, really good program. Obviously, the program's knocked on the door to, knock down that door to get into Omaha. And, you may have a guy like this be that leader, and it's because of the work that they're able to put into a place like Athletes Lab. And so that's why we're fortunate we can get into facilities like this. And Patrick, big open area, beautiful area for our bullpens. Then we had a big open area. We could do everything indoors. We could see the ball fly off the bat. We could take ground balls, simulate a full-length infield. We ring in a 30 with plenty of room for those guys to kind of move around. And they've opened up their weight room, so we were able to do a lot of our jumping and other testing in the weight room. Just an all-around great day. Players that stood out. Anybody kind of jump off the page at you?
Yeah, so start with Cameron Keenan. Two-way pitcher, goes to North Buncombe High School. Big dude. 6'5", 200 pounds. Just power when you talk about him. He's a 2027 on the mound. He was up to 86, but he had 3 pitches, curve and changeup. He commanded them all. That's what impressed me this early in the year. He was able to stay in the zone with all 3 of them. Just knew what he was doing, and was really able to just showcase his talent this early in the year. And, not only just on the pitching side of it, but when it's hitting too, he had the top exit velo of the event. I think he was up to upper 9s, something like that, 98.1 maybe. And just you could tell every swing, had a lot of pop, a lot of power. The ball sounded different coming off his bat. It was really impressive.
Yeah, he was an interesting watch on the mound. It was my first look. I think you have a little bit of a history with him. But on the mound for me, that's a big guy, and he's moving fairly efficiently. The arm works fairly well, but he throws a ton of strikes. And it's a weird thing to say. We're watching a 15-pitch bullpen, but when you watch these things over and over, you get a pretty good feel for when guys have good feel for what they're doing.
Right.
He's just pump, bang, bang, bang. And then he rips a slider in his zone. Then he throws his changeup in the zone. The other thing I loved was when we said, hey, you're going to throw your best 3 pitches. You're going to go 3, 3, and 3. His second pitch was a changeup. And I'm like, okay, typically we guys want to rip that spin. He throws changeup, and ball's got some life. It's got some dead action at the end, and it's in the zone. I was like, whew, pretty good. And, you start dreaming. You start seeing that body, and he's a pretty good mover. And then, I think he's still young, but I think his future's on the bump. But then he gets in the box and there's hand-eye coordination. For a
Right.
big guy with longer arms, it was barrel. We'd like to see it quicker, sure. We'd like to see a little bit better leverage, sure. But there's barrels. And I think you start translating that back to what he does with the strikes. And I think those two things go hand in hand. Guys that throw strikes, guys that can pitch, then develop velocity are dangerous prospects.
Correct.
Roll back through that roster. Anybody else that kind of stood out? I know, again, it's really early for us as we're diving into this stuff, but who's the next guy up?
I got two more guys. Another pitcher, Carter Bowman. He's actually from my area around here, goes Alexander Central. Seen him pitch a few times. I have seen his velo higher than what it was at the event.
Which is normal.
Games.
Preseason
right.
IDs, normal.
But the big thing from the event that I really liked, he 3 pitches, strikes with all 3 pitches. And that's always been his thing. And, his velo is going to be there. But, his changeup's a great pitch. He commanded the fastball well. Breaking ball was there. And I think if he can keep carrying the command through the season when his velo jumps, he's going to, be able to do something this year. He's not a huge guy, but, twitchy, moves really well, fast twitch. I think he's going to have a chance to do something this year in the high school season.
Yeah, again, and it's one of those things, and from a national standpoint, we can talk about guys in this area of the country do this, and this is how they develop, and guys in this area of the country do this, and this is how they develop. So you think of kids in Texas and Florida and California maybe different than you think of kids in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, just in their developmental tracks. I think our state has a little bit of that, with guys on the coast, guys in the Raleigh, Charlotte area versus guys out a little bit further out in the mountains. Is not maybe as drastic a swing, but there is a little bit of that. When you start seeing those athletic movers from the western part of the state, those guys tend to make big jumps at some point in that second or third year in high school. And so, again, for me, he got on the mound, and it was an efficient mover down the mound. There's looseness in the hips. There's some timing, good timing in the what he's doing with his arm. And so he's going to be an interesting follow just from that standpoint. Like you said, guys, occasionally we're going to see guys, we saw O'Rourke, peaking out some velocity early. Guys are in different parts of their throwing program. So we do see some velocity fluctuations here. That's why we're typically watching, Patrick, you and I both, I don't think we're not really even watching velocity. We're going to get those numbers later. We're watching, what does the arm path do? What's the body do? What's the feel like? What's the arm speed look like? And
right.
His arm speed was moving faster than his velocity, so I expect to see the velocity tick up as he goes.
Right. Yeah. One other guy that really jumped out, two-way freshman, Wilkes Central High School, Taylor Bumgarner. He big body for a freshman, right just shy 6'2", 210 pounds. On the mound, I think he was just shy 83. Commanded the changeup well. But then I know we got the video of him hitting up here. I mean, he hops in the box and, his exit velo average, I think, was up in the 90s for a freshman, barreling balls up, hitting to all parts of the field in there. And then, you put it back over on the mound and, he's already almost up to 83, throwing strikes. Changeup was commanded. He was a little stiff on the breaking ball, but, he's got plenty of time to improve on that, because he's got the size and the body's there.
Yeah, he was an interesting watch when we're seeing him on the mound here, because he got on the bump and I'm doing the evaluation. I'm sitting, I'm talking to him a little bit. And I think Michael, who was doing our camera work, kind of leaned over to me and goes, what did you have given to have that body as a freshman? I had a double take. I hadn't looked at it. I just assumed he was an upperclassman. I mean, that is a physical young man. You can see the defined leg strength and kind of a tapered waist there. There's, strength in the calf all the way up into the back end. Learning to use it will come, being a little bit more efficient with his usage and being a little bit quicker, being a little bit more explosive will come. But you can't, that strength plays. Guys that are strong and can move play. And he's a guy that showed that in this event. You take notice just because of some of the numbers he put up. Pretty good right there. All right.
Yeah, no, it was impressive.
Well, coming up now, one of the things that we've got to look forward to this week is a huge weekend. For us, we're in Greenville, North Carolina, already sold out, Preseason All-State East. great facility, next level training center in Greenville. Excited to be back there. Trent Britt runs that facility, really does a great job taking care of the players in that area. And, we work our schedule around trying to get into that facility because we love being there. But also he's working his schedule around their members because he wants to make sure that the guys that they work with on a daily basis have a chance to get their work in. And we're appreciative of that. And so we love going in there. We'll be there Saturday, put together a great roster for that event. There will be a ton of eyes based on just the roster that we have. And then Sunday we turn around, we go to a new facility, Arena Lake Norman. Arena Lake Norman, up in the Lake Norman, just north of Charlotte. Beautiful facility. I think people are going to be blown away when they see some of the sites that we're going to have in that facility and some of the advantages the players that are using that facility have. But on top of that, we have the Super 60. So let's start with the Super 60. Let's start with the national event, and then we can kind of dip into some of the rosters there. Zach, outside looking in, you have not been to the Super 60, but it's probably been an event as a pro scout and trying to track the flow of those pro prospects you've been following for some time. A little bit about, what that Super 60 can do for guys as they're getting ready for their high school season, working out in front of cross-checkers and area scouts from all over the country. And we've had some scouting directors in there. We've had some upper-level decision makers in there, depending on kind of who's there and what's going on each year.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's big. For these guys, it's a tremendous opportunity. It gives you a chance to kind of really show out in an environment where you're probably going to put up good numbers because you're juiced out of your mind. Like, you're going to have 100, 120 people watching you for the first, you might get it when you go to Jupiter, but like, this is a different level. It really helps for a lot of, for checkers and guys like that. Do we need to go see him? How many times do we need to go see him? How much resources do we need to put in? How much do we need to invest in the in-home, and his personal life and making sure he's a guy that, can be a pro. And so I think it's huge. I think that, I've had a guy, I had Jackson Humphreys, who absolutely blew up at the Super 60 a couple of years ago from Fuquay. And I mean, he was a, pretty high prospect, and he went from pretty high to everybody in the country is coming to watch him throw. So, it's one of those things where it doesn't really hurt you. It just gives you a chance to either, I look at it like a combine. You go to the NBA combine, you kind of either get to look at what you need to improve on in order to go to where you want to go, or, you're in a spot where people are going to start making decisions on you, and it's not going to be, kind of like where it's going to be kind of when and who's going to take you.
Several players from North Carolina. We talked about several last week with Rhett Johnson. We talked about Hammond. I think Hammond had to pull out. But two guys we haven't talked about, Roop and McKnight. Roop is a player that's basically moved back into North Carolina, right-handed pitcher, big arm. He's going to be at Grace Christian Academy in North Carolina. Has been there, but obviously he'll filter back into our rankings. And then Matt McKnight, a former Future Games player, Tar Heel, and a player that's got a lot of projection left in him. Talk a little bit about those two guys and kind of what you're hoping to see from them as they start posting their numbers.
Like we said, McKnight, big body, moves well. Got power potential. I think he's going to have a chance to go in and be an impact player for North Carolina as soon as he gets there, or the draft, whichever one he decides. Haven't seen him play a lot. I did get to see him at the Pro Case last year, and was one of those guys that jumped out at you with everything he did. And then with Roop, am I saying that right? Roop?
Yeah.
I haven't seen him. I know he's been in South Carolina, but like you said, 90s fastball. Looking at the video here, his arm looks clean. Gets everything out front.
This is a couple of years ago. This is old. This is old school. Your old stomping grounds.
That is been in that.
It's pretty easy.
A few times. Yeah, it is. That's what I was gonna say. Effortless, easy. Just everything works well. I'm excited to get to see him play this year and see where he's at. And
everybody will be able to follow everything that's going on Super 60. Shooter Hunt at Prep Baseball. We're going to have a ton of information flowing through our national channels. And remember, day of, day after, that's just the tip. I mean, there's going to be a 2, 3 week, 4 week build out as we're revamping rankings a little bit, revamping draft boards, going through Draft HQ. A lot of information going to be on the website. So make sure you're following all those different channels so you can kind of continue to track those guys as they go through the national. Post Super 60, we're going to be working to try and get some of those guys onto some podcasts or some whatever to kind of talk about their experience, talk about their upcoming spring, and get to know those guys a little bit more. So we're excited about that as well. Let's fast forward now. We're going to lose Patrick here in just a minute, I think, as he's got a hard out with a previous engagement through his agent. But we're heading to Greenville. We're heading to Charlotte. Patrick, real quick, 2 names to drop on us. Who are you excited to see this weekend?
All right, 2 guys from my side of the state. I'm excited to see Colt Briggs. He
super sophomore games alum.
Super sophomore games. I'm excited to see where he's grown to over this time period. Want to see where he's at, how his velo looks, command of his pitches, and just see what his body looks like. With having that time off, see if he's grown. I know they have high expectations for him at St. Stephen's this year in the high school season, so I'm excited to see where he's got to. And then second guy, Grayson Anderson. He was a decommit from Campbell. He is a senior this year, out there with something to prove, upper 80s, low 90s, right-handed pitcher, a lot of movement on the ball, and just excited to see what he's going to be able to do in front of all the eyes at these events.
Unique opportunity for 2 different guys on the spectrum. One's getting ready to really jumpstart into his recruiting process. One's on the back end of his recruiting process, dealing with some of the things that are happening nationally. So 2 good names. And again, the roster for Charlotte, the West event is up. Really, really loaded roster, and excited about that venue. Patrick, if you got to jump off at any point, just do so, and we'll see you down the road. Zach, let's talk a little bit about Greenville. As you're going through that roster, we've sold it out. It's going to be, an event that's got several future game alums, several super sophomore game alums, guys that have been invited to those events, some potential pro prospects down the line. Give me some names of some of the guys real quick that you're looking forward to seeing as we jump into that avenue.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I haven't seen this guy, and I've heard about him. We used to play South Central, so I always kind of kept up with him. Brody Brannon, 2-way guy. He's got some serious arm strength, serious twitch with the bat. He could be a 90-100 guy, which is, I deem them pretty rare. I think he's got a chance to be 90 on the bump and 100 with the barrel. So I'm really interested to see him. I'm going to take another local kid too. I'm going to take Tice Thompson. Last year he stood out, and it was so impressive. And then I realized he was a freshman, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so I'm really looking forward to see the jump that he makes again from this year. And then the last guy, and it's because you got the best pork chop biscuits around, Midway, Tanner Williams. I'm super stoked to see you, and I promise I'll be there during the season. As long as you guys still sell pork chop biscuits, I will go to Midway every year.
That's going to, yeah. So I got a little history with Tanner. I played with his dad in college. His dad was the greatest teammate of all time, possibly. He was one of those guys when you're a young freshman. He took his role as an upperclassman seriously in terms of trying to get you acclimated and affiliated to what was going on instead of trying to be the guy that was, going to beat you down and show you the way through hard times. And it translates. And, so you have fond memories and you get to bump into him again. And we had Tanner with us at our, what was that? That was the junior future games. And now he was invited to the super sophomore games, very, very talented player. He'll be in the mix as a follow for the future games roster and kind of see where he lands and how that prospect has continued to develop. So, one of the things I do like about both rosters is we're seeing some guys that we saw in the fall. We're seeing some guys we saw in the spring. And I think these events, not just from a number standpoint, but we get a chance to watch how they've developed, watch how their bodies have evolved. I don't know that everybody's going to peak numbers, and I saw Brandon at the SBA Coastal workout, and it was a very impressive workout. They had a couple of 2-way guys there that are going to garner some attention. Tice Thompson was there as well. But do they peak those numbers? Maybe, maybe not. But that's not the end all be all to these types of evaluations, because we're really looking to see, are they moving better? Are they stronger? Has the body started to change? How are they presenting themselves as people? They've now been around us a lot. A lot of guys have come to this event because they've gotten an invite we've seen and they've been around us before. So now there's a little bit more of a comfort level when they walk in. They know Zach, they know Patrick, they know me, they can shake our hands, they can say hi. We can, they may know my kids from previous events and how are your kids doing, things like that. And so there's a little bit more of a comfort level in terms of allowing them to be a little bit more free as athletes and then perform. And the other part about being in Greenville is that facility allows for it. I mean, it's just a huge open space. We've got to be kind of dynamic with our time and moving guys around. And so we're seeing things, but we're not completely dialed into everything that's happening. We have to go back and watch a lot of video on what's happening. But that area is a great space for the players to move around.
Yeah, I mean, when you get there, you want the guy that makes you stop. Like, we're running around chaotically. You want that guy that's, hold on, let me go watch that fastball. Let me go watch this guy take BP. Like, I'll say, like, last year Cuddy was there, and it just sounded like a gunshot was going off. And you were like, okay. And then, like, John Nelson on the mound, guys at Mount Olive now, like, he was throwing and you just stopped. You're like, wow, okay, this is a dude that we need to watch. And so, I agree. Like, I hope a lot of guys aren't peaking on February 1st when I see you. I hope you guys are trending upwards. And it gives me an incentive to come see you, and then I can see the progress. And, when we come to high school games, it's like, oh, okay, this is what this guy was. When I come out in April and May and it's 75, like, yeah, like you might have been 85, 87 when I saw you then, and now you're 88 to 90. But this is the same guy. You're not overthrowing. You're showing 3 pitches. You're commanding the zone. You're competing. That's a lot of fun to watch. Like, like we all love workout warriors and workout wonders. Those guys are cool. But, like, it's a lot of things we always talk about. You got to be able to produce. And, workouts show you have ability. And then so when we come, you got to be able to produce. Like, you can't be the guy that's 87 to 90 on the mound, and in game you're 82, 85. You can't be the guy that hits the ball 100, 105, and then your batting average is 105, 210. And that's kind of that, like, next gap where we love to watch you work out, and then we love to follow you to see how the workouts translate.
Let's take that same thought and into the workouts, evaluation-wise, what shows up well. A lot of these guys are trying to figure out, what do we want to see? What do we want to see when we're going through these types of evaluations? What do we want to see in BP? What do we want to see in ground balls? It's short shots. We're only getting a glimpse. There's very few evaluators in the world are going to show up, watch one BP session, go, here's his hitter grade. This is who he is. So, but we are looking for something. So let's start with BP. When you're either throwing or feeding or evaluating off to the side, what is it that's kind of capturing your attention? What do you like to see hitters do? And then I can drop it behind that.
Yeah, like for me, it's low effort, guys. Like, I like guys that don't, you're not jumping out of the box. You're able to rotate. Your motions are fluid. You're taking a swing that I know is going to work against 90 to 95, because at the end goal, that's where you want to play, and that's what they throw. If you could have a repeatable swing, that's 90% of the battle. You see all these guys that got all these waggles and their bats in 20 different positions, and you're like, this guy's not going to hit because he's never in the same position twice. So guys that understand their swing and understand their movement patterns are ahead of the game, regardless if you can hit it 100 or 90. If you can control your movement patterns, you're already ahead of the game.
One of the things I've talked about here recently in trying to talk to the hitters and do that hitter's intro is, what is TrackMan looking for? We're posting these numbers. These numbers live in space. So you go to an event and you go home and go, man, I had the greatest day ever. I hit 6 home runs in BP. My numbers are going to jump off the chart. Well, then you get home and you see my back's distance off the bat was 280 because it's 270 down the line, and you're jerking balls down the line. You hit a bunch of foul, but you did get those 6 out. And then your exit velocity is kind of TrackMan loves the ball in the middle of the field. There's a reason the field's deeper in center field. The ball tends to travel better in the middle. Backspin balls, gap to gap, at better exit velocities, better distance off the bat. So when we're trying to put up numbers, who cares if you hit it 280 feet and it went out, if you hit it 390 feet and it short hopped the wall? The 390 lives much better in space, and so working to stay in the middle of the field, because that's typically where hitters are stronger, and seeing that ball jump, and the exit velocities tend to lend itself to that as well. So, TrackMan's looking for that. For me, I'm looking for barrels. I want to find out who can get on the barrel and who can be on the barrel with quickness time and time and time and time again. Is there rhythm? Is it, you talked about ease of movement, not jumping. If that ease of movement's there and they're on the barrel and there's quickness, for me, that tends to play. The next step then is in game. Do they understand the strike zone? Are they able to pick up spin? If those things start checking boxes, now you start talking about guys that have a chance to hit. The other thing, the final thing I'm always looking for is hand strength. Guys that can manipulate the barrel, guys that can get the barrel where they want it to go. It's hard enough hitting and trying to get that thing, a rotational movement, hitting something that's coming at you, on a line. If you can manipulate the barrel, if you have hand strength and you can get the barrel and manipulate the barrel to where you want to go. And I know on Twitter, we have all these different hitting philosophies. Good hitters figure out ways to get the barrel to it, and there's a lot of ugly ways to do it. Pretty plays better. Pretty's going to be noticed sooner. But if you're getting the barrel to it, barrel after barrel after barrel after barrel in game and MVP, that stuff matters and it plays at a high level. So from a pitching standpoint, real quick, Zach, is there? I know velocity plays. I get it, and everybody wants to see velocity, but
what else usable stuff? And so I can always say Humphreys because he's one of mine. We had a guy who had 3,000 spin and it started as a ball and ended as a ball. So this is great curveball, but it never was a strike. So for me, is having usable stuff in the zone. If you got to lose a little spin, if we got to be able, to manipulate the shape of it a little bit, the ability to be in the zone is the most important thing. If once you're in the zone, hitters are gonna get out. There's a reason that the average strike percentage is 65 in the big leagues, and the average hitter hits 260. It's easier to throw strikes, and hitters are gonna get out. And you got to have something that makes you unique, whether it's your delivery, whether it's your frame, whether it's your release point, whether it's your spin rate. You've got to have something that makes you not a generic person. Hack attacks, all those hitting machines are generic. And so once you become not generic, you have a chance to get hitters out for a long time.
One of the things I saw that was unique 3, 4, 5 years ago, when the Tampa Bay Rays were making a run in the playoffs, they showed, hey, here's the pitchers they've used in the playoffs. And they put them on a clock, and they had every arm slot marked throughout the entire clock. These are the guys they've thrown. And so every time they went to the bullpen, they brought out a different slot. Every time they went to the bullpen, they brought out different spin. Every time they went to the bullpen, they brought out a different type of fastball. And so when we're coaches and we're trying to develop a pitching staff, right-handed 88 to 92 with a slider. Okay, but if they figure that out on Friday, and both of you and I went to games last year where Friday the other opposing team figured that out, and then on Saturday they saw right-hander 88-92, and then on Sunday they saw right-hander 88-92, and every bullpen guy was right-hander 88-92, and touchdowns are being scored every half inning. Can you change looks? And so, yes, we want that pure, unadulterated stuff. Yes, we want an out pitch. But how can you differentiate yourself? Are you a little guy? Can you make the ball rise? Are you a big guy? Can you create tilt? Are you in between? Or you have a little bit different arm slot? I'm not saying change who you are. And it doesn't necessarily mean arm slots are different or you're doing something different to manipulate the baseball. But if everybody else is fastball slider, develop changeup. If everybody else is throwing balls that sink, throw a ball that cuts. Finding different ways to differentiate yourself so when you come into the game, if the opposing offense is dialed in a little bit, you have a chance to get them off rhythm. If they're not dialed in, your stuff still plays and you keep them off rhythm. And so that's kind of what we're looking for. That can get me excited about how guys can fit in. But again, just evaluating the bullpen, I'm looking for movement. I want to see, are the hips oily? Do they have some looseness in them? Are we working in lines that are efficient, or are we all coiled up and uncoiling and that window of release points really thin in terms of being able to control the zone? Do we create action out front, or is our body creating action on the baseball? And then the arm action. Arm actions nowadays, when I first started coaching, arm actions took 2 years to clean. You go through all these different things. You're trying to clean arm. We can clean arm actions now in about 6 months, but I'm still looking for guys with decent arm action because those guys are going to be closer to the finished product in terms of being able to dominate the strike zone because they've had more reps in that pattern. When I clean an arm action, now I've got to start from zero with that arm action. So I've got one that's clean now, but I'm throwing pitch 0 and then pitch 1 and then pitch 2, trying to get to 8,000 pitches over the course of time so I can really locate fastball, really locate slider off that same window as fastball. And, those are things that stand out. Doesn't mean we're not going to pay attention to other guys. Doesn't mean as a coaching staff we're not going to take other guys, but those are guys that kind of jump off the page for me. Miss anything on that one, Zach?
No, I mean, as I said, like it's pretty spot on. Like as you get older, your margin for error is going to decrease, and so therefore you have to have stuff in case your margin for error is small. And stuff can also be location. If you could throw it in a teacup, hitter gonna get out. Like I mean, I spent a whole career trying not to hit balls in a teacup, so it's just the way that the game works now.
Well, we had planned for the final. We were going to do a punishment wheel today.
Wow.
And my plan was to kind of put something on the wheel, and no matter what happened, the next podcast we would do, whoever lost would have to come on and fulfill that punishment. I'm guessing. I guess we still do it.
I mean, we got it on clip. So
with Patrick, yeah, since he's not here. So okay, we'll spin the wheel, see who loses.
All right.
Oh, Patrick.
Tragic.
Patrick lost. We'll come up with the punishment. Patrick will have to define that punishment for the next time that we're on the podcast. For Zach Borowski, I'm Brandon Hall. This is the Prep Baseball of North Carolina podcast. We appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next week.